Okay. Kumlan and Ablak Gemara, we are up to the Ayin Aleph, Amid Aleph. The Mishnah told us that if somebody made a neder if a woman made a neder while she was an Arusa, her father and her chassan jointly annul her neder. And then the Mishnah says that if the chassan divorced her and someone else then became the chassan on that very same day, and the second chassan fiance takes over, and he can be made for, even though the Nedarim made obviously before he got engaged to her. In fact, even 100 in the same day, they all can annul her neder. They all step into the shoes of the original Urus, and it's a joint effort between the Urus and the father. There's actually an interesting discussion in halacha. You're not supposed to get remarried, for and so on. We'll talk about later in Gemara when it talks about they're married already. So came along Shmuel, and Shmuel said that this din, it does not only apply in a case where the first Orus, did not hear the about her neder. The second Orus heard it, therefore the second Orus has the right to go and cancel. Even if the first Orus heard it, so it's only the first Orus who has the right to annul the neder. Nevertheless, every single Orus that follows in succession, they all step into the shoes. That was Shmuel's Chiddush, and and so now the Gemara is up to in the middle of the page to bring us a brisa that supports Shmuel's Chiddush. That even though the first Orus heard about it, all the other people who took his place can continue as long as in the same day. Says the Gemara, Tanya Kavasa the Shmuel. We actually have a brisa that supports Shmuel. It says, Naid Hamurasa, a Naid Hamurasa of Via Ubaila Mafina. Her father and her husband together can annul her neder. Keitzad, and we'll give a few cases. Shama Avia, her father heard Vahafala and gave the hafara, but Velahispik Habal Shmaya, but the husband did not hear about it ad Shemes until he died. Then this Arsa baby, on that very day she became an Urus again. Vafilu Mea Pamim, even 100 times. Nevertheless, Avia or Baila Achran, her father and her husband can annul her Nedarim. And this doesn't really, according to some of the Shem, this is the proof. Other Shem say this doesn't really prove anything because maybe he didn't hear about it. It said lehispik habal l'shmaya. So there's no proof from here. Others learn there is a proof from here because, as we'll see, in the Chlek of Bisham Vasil, which we learned a few days ago, they're also arguing about case number 1. And the author of this Braisa is Beishamet, but Beis Hillel would disagree. And according to Beis Hillel, then it says that even if the husband heard about it, makes no difference that the Orus, as we'll see in a minute. Case number 2, Shama Baila. If Shama Baila, we already had this a few days ago, Shama Baila, husband heard about it, he did his thing. But the father did not hear about the neder until the chassan died. So the father, not only does he do his own annulment, but he takes over. That's what we say in the Shreikin. It empties out from the Bala, goes back to the father. Now, Omar Abnasan, and Abnasan said, Hein Divid Beishamai. These are the words of Beishamai. Beishamai, if you remember, we had a whole discussion a few days ago when the husband goes ahead and knows the neder. Is it that he cancels half the neder, or that he weakens the entire neder? Beishamai says he cancels half the neder. So according to Beishamai, the husband now took care of his part there, and the father now does the rest. The father can no longer be mefer. If the father wasn't mefer before, he can no longer be mefer. And why is that? And we explained before, because according to Beis Hillel, the husband already weakened the entire neder, and there's nothing left to go back to the father. What's the argument? Beishamai says, Nedori Nami, that Beishamai says that those Nedorim, that Sheniru La'oris, that even the Nedorim, that was already suitable for the Urus. That if the Urus dies, it gets transferred back to the father, because he says that the husband, he did his hafara 50%. It's gone. There's nothing left to be done, and And even though now that the husband died, the hafara goes with him, the fact is there's nothing left to be done on that side of the thing because he took care of everything that had to be done, and now it's gone, and the father now is the sole person that can cancel the whole neder. So even if it was row to notice, it goes back to the father. Umega's guy, because he holds that the chassan does 50% and the father does 50%, and the chassan 50% is gone. But Basil Sabri, Basil's of the opinion that Avia Ubaila Achram, that the father and the next order that take steps in, Lemega's guy, because the husband weakened the entire neder, but he's still attached to it because it didn't, and therefore, and this the father did not take care of the rest. The next order steps in the place of the first orders. We learned before the round other Shem Mass, we learned before that according to Beis Hillel, it does not transfer back to the father because since he weakened the whole neder, it's not strong enough, it's not transferable. And yet here we're saying that it's transferable to the Oris. So they're saying there's a difference between moving sides to the father or staying within the realm of the Oris. Moving sides to the father, there's no connection between the two, and therefore you need to be able to transfer it has to have some chashivas. And because the husband, the chassan, weakened the entire neder, so therefore what's left now is not transferable to the father. However, if for the next Aris, it's not a question of transferable. The next Aris is the Aris. He steps into the shoes of the Aris because he is an Aris. And therefore, it doesn't matter that it's a weak neder because he's not really transferring from one domain to the next. This is the same domain. So the next Aris steps into the shoes of the first Aris. That is the
actually moving in there as opposed to the
exactly
moving to the
exactly moving to another. Exactly. There's a big machlekes Rishonim, Ramban, and others when we say that the father, if the chassan died, the father steps in and does the chassan's part as well. Does it have to be b'yom shamay, the day that he heard about it on Tuesday and he did his hafara? The husband heard about it a week later, and then let's say he died, whatever it is, and now he takes over the husband's place. Can he still be mefer?
He heard about it last week.
Because he heard about it last week. The Ramban says no, it has to be b'yom shamay. And according to other shayim, it doesn't matter. It sounds like the question is when the father steps into the son-in-law's shoes, is he now the son-in-law, or the pshat is that the son-in-law doesn't exist anymore and is back to the father's domain? Because if it's back in the father's domain, well, the halacha for him was b'yom shamay, the day that he heard it. So even though he took away the koyach from his son-in-law and now he has the right, he doesn't have the right. Because once 24 hours go by, he loses the right. But the pshat is that no, it's his share, and now he steps into the shoes of his son-in-law. Then it's 24 hours it's the day of his son-in-law that he can be made for. It doesn't matter if it's a week after when he originally heard about it.
You could even add a third layer to be a day from when he heard his son-in-law die. Let's say his son-in-law died on Tuesday, but he only heard about it on Wednesday.
Interesting.
So now he has. Does it have to do from when it's shaykh to be made for?
Okay, yeah, I didn't see anybody talk about that, but good point. Good point. Okay, let's continue. Now has another question. Ibailu, here's another question. Geidishin. Let's say the chassan divorces his wife. Is kishtikadami or kakamadami? Instead of canceling the neder or whatever, he divorced his wife. Is that tantamount to he's saying, look, I know that once I divorce my wife, I can no longer annul in the Nedarim? It's as if he's saying, I don't mind that neder at all, let her have it. Or it has no bearing on the hafara one way or another. So is it like shtika that he's not getting involved, not saying anything? And now, what's the difference? Because even if it's shtika, even if it's not it's not a confirmation, but nor is it a cancellation, so then the din is that the neder stays in existence. So what's the difference? The mind after meaning shenadra. Let's say she made a neder Monday morning. Vishama Bailey heard about it. Vigirsha, he was very upset, whatever it is, he divorced her. And then he came back to him, so really what an idiot he was. But and he took it back. May on the very same, and she agreed to take it back. On the very same day, they got remarried again. Now, if you can tell me that his act of divorce in the first instance is merely has no bearing really on the neder at all, so he's just quiet. So all he has till the end of the day to cancel. He can cancel. But the Amadami, if you're going to tell me the act of engagement itself, he didn't know he'll be able to get married again, and he didn't know she'll accept. So therefore, and he, as if he said, well, if we're not going to be married again, we're not going to be married again. He's like Motzimefla. So therefore, since once he fulfilled it, he can no longer cancel. Tashma coming here. Amosai Amru, when do we say? It says, Amosai Amru, when do we say Meis Habal? We had it before the Bryce. When do we say if the husband died that it transfers back to the father? He's now in total control. Bisman, we gave 3 cases of it. Bisman Shaloi Shamabal. The husband didn't hear it all, so he was not involved at all in this matter. So therefore, basically, it goes right back to original. Or he did hear about it and he canceled it. He heard about it and he canceled it. And he heard about it and he was quiet. And he died on that very day, which means he didn't really have a chance to. He didn't meet nightfall yet, so we cannot say for sure that it's a cancellation because he was quiet. Machlekes are showing him if Shama behavior also has to be talking about Baybayim on that day, or even the next day he died, since he was Mayfair. He was Mayfair. Now, so it goes back to the father. If you tell me if you're going to tell me that divorce is no different than he was quiet, why doesn't the Bryce give a 4th option? At least the Nami limit a 4th option that he didn't have to die. Oishama, he heard the Giddush and he divorced. And now it goes back to the father. It's clear that if he divorces her, that's he fulfilled it. And once he fulfilled it, the father can no longer cancel later. Okay, so that's a raya that the act of gerushin is tantamount to a confirmation. Says Gemara.
Pre-gerushin checklist is make sure all the
exactly. If it bothers you, yeah. Aim is safer. Let's say if you're going to be so pedantic, let's look at the rest of the brayse. Avolim shama v'kiyam. If he heard the neder of his wife and he confirmed it, then he died. Or shama v'shasik, he heard it was quiet, but the maze b'yom shel achrav, he died the following day. So nightfall came, he didn't do anything about it, which is tantamount to confirmation. Then ein yachal haf, the father no longer has the ability to be made for, because once the chassan confirmed it, that's it. If you tell me that gerushin is tantamount, if you can tell me that divorce is equal to a confirmation, let's give another option in the sefer. Let us say, at least the v'im shama he heard the giddush ain't divorced. It's a confirmation. The father can no longer cancel. Why don't you say that? For me, I would bring it. I just opposite. I would say it does not prove that if he divorced her, that's not a confirmation. At best, it's like silence. And Blake Tony Hawkins say that shema no gedish is just like being quiet. From this brayse, you can't prove one way or another, because from the Reisha you'll prove one way, and from the end of the brayse you'll prove another way. If the beginning of the brayse is being very pedantic, then Nasiv say from Reisha, then the examples he gave in the end is just to the counterpart of those he gave in the beginning. Therefore, we don't introduce another variable. And he say for Dafka, and if you tell me the Sefer is Dafka, Nasiv Reisha, Shuv Sefer. In other words, you can't prove one way or another, because one of them is definitely, the Bryce omitted it. Another one, because he omitted one place, he omitted another place. But we don't know which is the definite. Okay, Toshma, bring another proof. Nodra, she made a neder, she made a neder while she was merely engaged. Then Vinis Garsha, she was divorced. Vinis Arsa, this is our Mishnah. And then she got engaged again. Boy, that day, I feel the mayor, even to 100 different people of the Baila, her father and the very last others together jointly, they cancel her Nedarim. The husband, the first chassan, divorced her. And if you're telling me that divorce is a confirmation, then how can the later others cancel what the first others already confirmed? There's only one possible way of understanding it, that divorce is not confirmation. Divorce means the husband's not getting involved, there's one meddle in her affairs. And therefore, the second others can come in and step in his shoes. If you're going to tell me that divorce is confirmation, so when the first chas divorced her, he confirmed her neder, how can the second others come in and cancel that? We learned before a whole question if you can be shoyal. And we said you could, but that's not just canceling. You have to go into, and even in this case, who said he could be shoyal? Because he's not the one who made the confirmation. Me matzim mefer others achen nidrei the position. How, if the divorce is a confirmation, how can the second others come in and step into the shoes of the first others? So that's not a proof. You know why? We're talking about it here. Maybe our Mishnah is talking about a case where the first Ara did not hear about it. So if he didn't hear about it and he divorced her, how in the world does that prove there's a confirmation? The confirmation is he heard about the neder, he had an opportunity to confirm or annul, and he just divorced her. So we'll say, okay, we'll read into that he's happy to confirm the neder. But if he was not aware that his wife made a neder, how can you interpret his divorce as if he's confirming the neder? He had no idea there was a neder. And I'm just talking about that there was no comfort, that he wasn't aware. Even though we just learned that Shmuel understood our Mishnah. Clearly, we learned yesterday's Gemara that Shmuel understood our Mishnah. That even though the first chassan heard about it, the second chassan can step in his shoes and take over. That is, and because of that, many of the Shayim hold our Gemara is not going to resolve the issue, but because Shmuel clearly resolved it in his mind, therefore the halacha should be like Shmuel, that divorce is not considered a confirmation, because the Mishnah talking about daughters knew about it, and yet we say the second daughters can step in, and others learn that no, Shmuel was not discussing our Mishnah, even though it sounded like that the Gemara was not. Shmuel said it didn't. Then we ask a question of Shmuel from our Mishnah, and Shmuel comes along and gives an answer. Shmuel was not commenting on Mishnah, and they bring the Gemara in Elam Metzias, the beginning of Elam Metzias, where you have it. Rabbi Yitzchak says, "Kav ba'ar ba'amas." We're talking about Yerush, where when you lose something, and when can we assume that you give up hope, you abandon hope? And he says about kav ba'akav and for amas. Then there's a question of the Gemara, and there's a Machnasrei Dor asking, and he gives an answer. The Gemara, all the Rishonim, they say this is not Gemara is asking a question. It's all part of Yitzchak's rhetorical question and answer. Same here. Shmuel was talking; he was not discussing our Mishnah. So our Mishnah could very well be talking about a case where the husband didn't know, and therefore we have no proof one way or another. Anyway, the Gemara continues. If the husband didn't hear about it. And right now we assume when it says boy we're talking about the day that that day that he died. The Aras heard about it, and therefore the Chiddush is the next Aras could take over. If you come along and tell me that the Aras did not hear about it, so why boy why do you have why did you have to get engaged and married the second? The Aras didn't hear about it. It could be the next guy got married the second day, and then the next day because he didn't hear about it. And if he didn't hear about it, it doesn't kick in b'yayim shamay. And right now we're understanding it's talking about the b'yayim is because of the chassan. If he didn't hear, the others didn't hear about it, and only the next Aris heard about it, a week later, Yom Shammai. He's now the Aris, and that's his Yom Shammai. Since the first chassan didn't hear about it, if the first chassan didn't hear about it, then the clock's going to start ticking, and whenever the next Aris comes in and he hears about it, okay. So why does it have to say boy b'yom on that day? The next guy married her. If the first guy didn't hear about it, it doesn't matter when the second guy married her. So Timur, no. Talking about a case here. It's talking about where the father heard about it. The boy b'yom in Motzimefer. We're talking about the father. The boy b'yom is not referring to the. It's talking about boy b'yom the day the father heard about it. Because if the father heard about it, and the chassan did not hear about it, and a week later the chassan hears about it, or the next chassan steps in, it's too late already. Because once the father passed his timetable and he didn't do anything about it, that means he confirmed it, and we need both of them to annul the neder. So therefore, when the Mishnah says on the day that the father heard about it, the new chassan had to step in, because of the new chassan. If the day the father heard about it, and let's say he annulled the neder on that day, the next chassan also has to annul it on that day to make it an annulment. So that's where the baby comes in. So the mother, that the father can only be mefer on that day. Beyond that day, he cannot be mefer. Just teaching you halacha. It's not saying it teach any chidushim. Of course, the father is. If he's talking about the day the father has his rights, everything has to take place at that time. Because once the father did not mefer in that 24 hours, the whole thing it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Because one of the two parties already confirmed. I'm not knowledge. Tashma coming here. It says Nadra boy b'yoim. Let's say so Nadra, she made a neder. And boy b'yoim Girsha, on that very day he divorced her. Boy b'yim, he took her back on that same day. So he divorced her, he took her back, and Yochel Hafer. Clearly, it says that you cannot cancel. Now, what's possible reason can't he cancel the same day that he heard about it? He divorced her. Or the only thing that happened in between, he divorced her. doesn't that prove that the act of divorce is a confirmation? It's clear that the divorce is confirmation. Amri says, who told you that later on the Gemara is talking about they were engaged, they were married? No. So let's say they were married, divorced her, and he remarried her. Why can't he cancel the Nedarim she made that morning? Because we learned before that a husband cannot cancel the Nedarim made before the marriage. And because it's the second marriage, we ignore what happened in the first marriage. And he can only say, let's say 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they married a second time. He could only cancel the Nedarim from 3 o'clock and onward. It's only the chassan who can cancel the Nedarim before, because he's in partnership with the father, who the father has a right to cancel all the Nedarim prior to her engagement. They're talking about they got married and they got engaged and they're married, divorced, they got remarried. The higher time they love it. So why can't the husband in the second marriage cancel the Nedarim for that morning? Because it's treated as if 2 separate marriages, and you cannot have any. You don't have any rights to cancel the Nedarim from the previous marriage. So I was telling you in the beginning of the year, there's a big interesting machlekes. We know that if a woman who's divorced has to wait 3 months before she gets married, and over here you got married the same day. So from here they wanted. So this machlekes how to understand pshat. Someone will learn from here that rule of 3 months only applies to a stranger, not the original husband. Because the whole reason why you have to wait 3 months is to know the child from the first husband and the second husband. Here, it's the same husband. Others don't make that distinction, and they learn pshat Gemara here, not to say he had a right to divorce her and marry her in the same day. This is what happened. It's the story. He married in the same day. So can he or can't he? But he shouldn't have. Before that's the Rav, they were told him, even you. But once the Chachami put in a rule in a place, doesn't matter the reason, it's ubiquitous and applies to all cases. So even the own husband has to wait 3 months to remarry her. Okay, this ends today's Gemara. We'll continue to